Hello and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people. You said that so calmly that I was like, I'm going to match this energy, especially with considering what we're trying to talk about and acknowledge today. So, hi,
Mhm.
everybody. You're safe here.
Hello, welcome to Alchemist Inkwell's neighborhood. I was
Yeah.
going like Mr. Rogers. It's that like
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah. That's perfect. That is perfect. Um,
You're back.
yeah. Yeah, we are. I'm KristaLyn.
I'm Emily, and we were in Ireland, and now we are not in Ireland.
We are back from Ireland. We are halfway through Venus retrograde. We are actually more than halfway through Venus retrograde now. And we really wanted to just take a minute and acknowledge that, you guys. So, fun fact, the myth that personifies Venus retrograde is Inanna going into the underworld with the Ereshkigal. And that's no graceful, gorgeous situation, it's definitely a myth worth looking up if you haven't heard about it before. And I feel like if any of us could summarize it, it would probably be you that would do it best. But
Honestly, I haven't read that one in a long time, so I'm not
yeah.
going to do that. I know of it, but I'm not gonna
Yeah, so it's
go
it's
back.
a very again, Inanna goes to the underworld. I believe it's her sister Ereshkigal rules the underworld, shames her in a bunch of ways.
Mm.
And it's definitely a death process and rebirth kind of experience for the process of it. And of course, Venus went through the going into the underworld. Then we had the Kazemi, and now we are coming into what should represent the rebirth process. Venus rising again from the sun's beams, which is going to take a little while because she is still moving slowly. The sun, Hellenistically, you look at 15 degrees on either side of the sun before she becomes visible again, and she will be rising as a morning star. So we'll see her in the mornings now instead of the evenings, and so that's what you'll see with Venus. But she is rising now towards the end of her retrograde, which will finish in the first days of September. That
Mhm.
means that we have gone through the tribulation part already of that saga. Um, and I don't like to make promises I can't keep. So I'm not going to say that now it's all over, but I'm going to say that now we come through the applying what we've learned, the realizing what we learned, the sort of, dealing with what we are now aware of. Just as with every post midpoint of a story, we have the clearer picture now. And now we move towards the climactic moment of finding whatever helps us reach the enlightenment that we're going for.
Yeah, hopefully, because this Venus retrograde has been a doozy.
It's
It has
been
been a
rough.
doozy for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
I like, obviously in our own personal experience, we've had some rough goes. But talking to a whole bunch of people, a lot of people have had some rough goes. It has been like we knew it would be. We
We've
knew
been
it would
talking
be.
about it for a while. Yeah.
We have indeed, and we knew that this was going to be one, again, challenging relationships, those types of things, and also our relationships with different things, whether those
Mm-hmm.
things are objects or people or ideals or whatever. It's been very challenging
Mm-hmm.
um, in a lot of ways. So if you're going through it with Venus retrograde, just know we see you. We're sorry
Mm-hmm.
because we totally get it.
And that being said, not everyone is having a terrible Venus retrograde. There have been a lot of people who are like getting engaged or having conversations about marriage. Some of them are astrologers that I know. So, congratulations to all of you guys. You know who you are if you're listening. So exciting. But making use of the energy that is available to them in their chart layout and their chart alignment and their own timings that are going on. So, Venus in her nature is a benefic. We like to say that she does try to bring about good things. Right now she's just a little bit wonky. We got to give her a moment to get herself together. But
I just I cannot believe I'm Venus ruled naturally, and then I
yeah.
enter a Venus perfection year, and Venus is in retrograde almost immediately.
Yeah.
That's so fucking mean.
No, so I'm with you, right? Because I entered a 10th house year, which is supposed to be about like visibility and career and all of this great stuff. And it's a solar year. So it's like the sun helping with visibility. And I'm like, yes, you guys. And then Venus
Mhm.
comes into my perfected house, uninvited, sister, and and then proceeds to retrograde through my perfected house almost immediately. So yeah, it's amazing how we all have our versions of how she's interacting with us. Some far more active than others,
Mhm.
some far more angular and in your face. There's just a lot going on. It's interesting to see how she shows up. And again, for some people, it's been really romantic and lovely and introspective and helping people discover who they are in a lot of ways, which I think is the ultimate goal in this. You know, we're all discovering who we are, and if there are certain boundaries that have had to been established for that, we're laying down those boundaries, however difficult they might be. So give yourself credit if you have had to set a lot of boundaries, if you have had to say, like, I need to take care of me, you need to take care of you, and we can meet in the middle once we are both cared for sufficiently. It was one of the things I felt coming with the retrograde that we talked about in advance, but now we're seeing a little bit more how it tangibly has shown up. Both Em and I in our personal lives have seen that theme unfold. So for anyone else who is also experiencing it, go you. I want you to understand that you are being extraordinarily powerful right now in going through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a lot. So, and we have a new moon this week. So let's talk about that. When this premieres, it will have been, I guess, technically the day before, unless you're in Patreon and you're getting this episode a day early, which, you know, that's cool.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I feel like I feel like it's still important to talk about the new moon energy, because it's a very interesting one. For manifesting things in general. You looking like manifesting mostly just clarity at this point is what I'm seeing the most of, like, I don't know what to do, so show me what to do. That kind of energy is coming up quite a bit.
Yeah. So what we're seeing, clarity is definitely something to be looking for. So this is a new moon happening in the sign of Leo, where the sun is for the next few days after this. It's at the 23rd degree of Leo. So check to see if the 23rd degree is important for you in the sign of Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio in particular, because that's when you might notice that this really shows up in a way that you can tangibly experience, like sort of in your personal life. It will show up for you in other ways too, but this is just the way that's like the most awareness that you might receive. That being said, another planet that is currently transiting at 23 degrees in Taurus, which is one of the signs we just mentioned because it is square to Leo, is Uranus. Good old Uranus, the whole unpredictability thing, surprising thing. So you're going to be looking for clarity because this is Leo. This is like the wanting to express. Venus is nearby. So there's, you know, a lot of, I want to really figure myself out. I want to figure out what I need. I want to get clear on my path and how I can be filling my space in the world and, you know, shining my light in the way that it needs to shine. But that might look entirely different than the way you expect it to. So that's something to really keep in mind as we are experiencing the moon and the sun both square to Uranus at this time. For a little bit of context, what we're going to see, and I'm just finding things on a screen right now, which my eyes love to do. What we're going to see is the sun squares Uranus perfectly on the 15th, so the day before. So that square with Uranus, as far as the sun is concerned, is separating. The moon is a little bit faster, so she's actually going to catch up to that in order to have this conjunction with the sun, which is the new moon. And so we're going to see that on that day, right before the perfection of this new moon, the moon will interact with Uranus. And someone else is also interacting with Uranus that day because Mars will be trine Uranus. So Mars in Virgo, who has had us all like cleaning out our garages and that kind of stuff, is going to come to Uranus and give us some new inspiration or new challenges to evolve from. And this is a trine, so it's going to be something that comes about quickly or easily, or trines can be very beneficial, or they can make something just very easy to notice. So I'm going to be watching the headlines that day in particular, just because it is a new moon that makes things personal, plus Mars interacting with Uranus as well as the moon. We got a lot going on about surprising information, new information, innovative information is another way that we can see this happening. Innovative action is a great way to talk about Mars and Uranus experience. So keeping things with that, Mars is really looking at bursting through and getting efficient in stuff. Can cause a little bit of anxiety if things aren't already organized. And Uranus and Taurus is already, since 2018, been saying, hey, we need to get our infrastructure together, you guys. It's kind of rusty.
Yeah. So thank you for clarifying a lot of that energy, because I think a lot of people are going to feel like this new moon is very weird, because it is. It's got some weird energy to it. Which is again why I'm saying, like, I encourage you to work on manifesting clarity, like manifesting either answers to problems you're having, or directional clarity, where you can be like, what direction do I need to go? It's less of a let's manifest in tangible things, and more let's manifest in answers or ideas, so that you have the clarity that you need to do the infrastructure of your own life, to mess with stuff there.
Yeah.
I am happy to hear that my move is being supported, though, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Just gonna throw that in there.
Yeah.
I'm moving, so not out of Tahoe, just to a house.
Yeah. Yeah. We're on the brink of the possibility of that as well. Knock on wood, all the positive thoughts welcome. So that'll be interesting, because this is the day that we'll be walking through the house that we're hoping will be the one. So fun stuff.
Amazing. The other thing I do just want to say, so obviously this is stuff that's happening probably the day before for you, unless you're in the Patreon, you're listening to it the day of. So look back on the last couple days when you're listening to this and see, how did this stuff come up for you? Were there weird Uranus things that kind of came into play? What were the headlines? How did, if you're like, oh, I forgot to manifest last night, that's fine. Manifest right now. That's okay.
Well, and that's the cool thing, to your point. Oh, I forgot to manifest last night. No, you didn't. It happened naturally for you. Look at things that came up, look at things that you're naturally thinking about, and now you have the blueprint. Go ahead and start taking some action.
Yeah. So just to throw that out there, because we know it's like kind of after the fact. If you're listening to this, that's okay. That's totally fine. There is still energy supporting you and pushing you forward.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, you never miss a transit. It's just sometimes it's coming first, and so you set intentions for it, and then other times you realize, wow, that happened pretty naturally. So don't worry about that kind of stuff. That being said, if you like elections, that's one of the things I'm doing monthly in my Patreon, is setting elections for mostly petitions. If I find a talismanic thing, I will debate whether or not it's safe to make a talisman, but you will get a petition or an election of a really cool day each month to put to use. So that's one way to get started with something like that.
That's really cool. Yeah, Krista has their own Patreon now. You should go check it out.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun. Yeah. I'm excited about it. We're doing like book clubs and Q&As, and it's fun.
Yeah, bunch of cool stuff. Cool stuff. Also, we're about to head into Mercury retrograde too. So let's touch on that for a brief little minute. And then we'll talk about Ireland. So then you have some fun, instead of just like, guess what, this is happening. You'll be fine, but it's happening.
So the good news is, after this new moon on the 16th, we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of rest. No perfecting transits that will kind of lock into place. So we have time to respond to whatever comes up with the new moon. And with the whole Mars-Uranus situation, we have time to process that as we come into then Venus retrograde interacting with Jupiter. So Venus and Jupiter will square, which is pretty cool. Two benefics, usually even when they're square, in traditional texts, tend to bring about, productive things, if nothing else, right? So we're looking at something that is active happening around that time. I've been watching Venus retrograde really play along with the strikes that are going on, especially of artists in various avenues, particularly in Hollywood. So I'm wondering what kind of situations and benefits will be reassessed in relationships around that time, now that we're in the second half of it. And we've noticed like even more people speaking out starting this week. It got another kind of headline moment during the Venus Cazimi. So I'm really recognizing this as a hallmark of this transit. It's probably what I'll be talking about in one of my monthly things of like current events and transits. And on that same day, though, an interesting note is Mars will then oppose Neptune. So there might be some confusion as to what action to take, move forward. So it's like, with this energy, if we use it in that context, metaphorically, we could say we acknowledge that there is a problem. We are now aligned on the fact that there is a solution. We're not really sure how to get there, but we're determined to go. And that, of course, is on the 22nd, which is the day before Mercury stations retrograde, on the same day that it trines Uranus again. So Uranus coming into play again. So Mercury retrograde in domicile and exaltation to start out, which is where Mercury is in Virgo. Like, the sign of Virgo really loves Mercury. Mercury really loves Virgo. Mercury is going to trine with Uranus, go super like, think about like an organizational genius chaotic. The same day that the sun also comes into Virgo. So this is going to be a very Virgoan but not as organized and stable as we would normally expect. So it could be a really wonky day where it's like technology, especially when it comes to like your organization or your calendar, or even, you know, we think of Virgo as also Cirrus. So, or Demeter even. So thinking about your resources that support you and that sustain you, your own health. Take those things into consideration. Try a new workout that day. Do it safely. We don't want any accidents to come, since it will be easy to perhaps have an accident. It's also easy to have a drastic change. So both of those energies are supported. This is the opportunity where you're like, oh, I know this is happening. I'm going to change my workout routine that day. I'm going to do it carefully so that I take care of myself. But also, it's better to work alongside of it than to receive and have to react to that energy if it's something that you want to work with. So that's on the 23rd. And then we make it back around to Thursday, which will be something we can talk about for next week. So yeah, Mercury retrograde.
Going on.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious about having Venus and Mercury both in retrograde at the same time. Venus will go direct on the 3rd of September, and then Mercury will be retrograde on their own through the 15th of the 15th of September. It's funny, I'm like hovering over these things and this program knows my chart, and it's like, Mercury goes direct, your midheaven is only 3 degrees away. It's like, thanks guys, I know this is going to hit me, it's fine.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
your midheaven is only 3 degrees. Beware.
By the way, you're going to feel this. Thank you, I'm aware. We're cool. It's all right. Yeah,
that's funny. So yeah, Mercury retrograde, tech has already been weird for the last like month or so. Uranus doing Uranus things. So just take it slow, update everything beforehand. You can, because that will help set you up for success there. Cool. Well, do you want to tell them about Ireland? How Ireland was? Because we had a fun time.
Let's talk about bright and happy things.
Yeah. Right? We had a blast. Ireland was super duper cool. We did a lot of stuff. We did so many things. So many things. That not some of them we were like expecting, and some of them our tour guide just kind of threw in, and it was really cool.
Which
it was
we
a
love.
lot of which we love. Yeah, and he was so sweet. He was saying that he didn't know what to do with us. So he asked his sister-in-law, and he was like, what would you do with a bunch of like spiritual people? And she was like, I don't know, do you know of any cool old rocks? And he was like, yeah. At one point he took us to an Owam stone, which the Owam is the ancient Celtic kind of alphabet writing system. It's also a divination system. It's very, very complex. And Owam stones are stones that ancient peoples left, put in the ground that are carved with the Owam symbols. So he took us to one of these, and it was on this like goofy little side road that like, good on him for figuring out where it was and dropping us off there. And I think that was a highlight for most people. And he was so confused.
It was because all of us were just like touching the stone and having a reaction to it. And to him, it was a bunch of people grouped around a stone and just agog at this stone.
Wow. It's magnificent. The energy was so cool. The Fae were so happy we were there and like appreciative of it.
Yeah.
It was really neat.
One of our people asked the Fae if she could take a flower, and they were like, no. And she was like, okay, F you. And I was like, don't F you, the Fae here. It's like, it's their place, remember? But she had such a really cool connection with the Fae in her own way. So, and I know like when I tapped in, it was like the Fae were a little bit of the higher variety that at least regarding that area. So they were like, it's okay, we hear that word all the time and it's funny. So like, cool. Yeah, there was a lot of interaction with more Fae energy, which I tried to like manage my expectations for, because like you're in Ireland, I didn't want to play into a stereotype too much, but there were a lot of walks we got to take that were very had close proximity to nature. And the one thing I noticed is a lot of the nature there is preserved, which I think is very wise. Because, I ran into even that one deer in the woods. I asked permission to go through this. It looked like a portal, you guys. It was like a circle in the trees. There was like a wall of trees and a circle was there. And I was like, I want to go in. And Dan was like, I don't know if you should. So I tried to go in and there was a spider web in my face. And I was like, I respect that. I'm not going to go in. And then the very next moment we saw this deer, just this one deer romping through the woods, and it stopped and stared at us. And I was like, sir, this is your space. Okay. But that was one of the most interactive moments I think I've ever had with that kind of energy.
Yeah, it was really, there's a lot of powerful, very powerful fairy energy around. And we did a lot of stuff very much out in nature. One of the activations we did was at the foot of this like castle ruin, like on the banks of this like, I don't know what it was. Was it just like a bay or it was a water zone? The water was salty, but
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe
there were
it.
crabs and the seaweed and the
It was, but it felt not oceany, if that makes sense. It's like you could see the ocean
like a deep inlet.
like a very deep inlet. And we were on the Ring of Kerry, so that's what it's mostly made of, I guess. So
yeah,
it makes sense. But we're like at the base of these castle ruins that were really, really cool. And we did this like whole activation all together that was super duper neat for the energy there. And you could feel the like, hey, gathering around and all kind of looking at us like, what the fuck are they doing? What is this? Which was really cool. There was a lot of neat things like that. And I think the Owam Stone was the one that everyone felt it the most because the spiritual pressure there was very intense. It was, you could feel the energy of it so much so, which was cool. We also just did some fun energy stuff as well. Like we did a walking tour around Dublin and got to really tap into the energy of a bunch of different like locations and places and history, which was super duper neat. Again, the things that the tour guides thought we were gonna like. The walking around Dublin tour guide, she was so at her wit's end with us because she'd be like, this is this thing and it's like a spectacular church or something, and we're like, oh, that's cool, take a couple pictures, and then she'd be like, and then this is where they found a Viking thing you can see by these bricks in the ground, and we were all like,
touch the rock. Well, especially since that day we were focused on your clairsenses. And so our whole lesson workshop that day was, how are you perceiving all the things we're hearing about on this remote viewing into the past and that kind of stuff? And so everybody was really excited whenever we had like this happened here to use their clairsenses, tendency, cognitive, anything, and tap into it. And so they really jumped on the events, and I don't know if she was prepared for it.
She was not prepared for it. Also, Krista and I frolicked where we should not have frolicked.
We frolicked too close to the helicopter pad.
Yeah, there was like, we were at the Dublin Castle and there's like this big courtyard. It's like all gardens, like it's supposed to be all gardens, but there's this big grassy area and it's like a helicopter pad, but it looks like just really big, pretty grass. Well, Krista and I were taking pictures and the tour lady was like leaving without us, like very distinctly and on purpose. And we were like, oh, we need to catch up. And so we're like running across the grass and we're like, we should frolic. This is such good frolicking grass. So we like skipped and jumped. And then everyone's like, did you not see the signs that said
I didn't until it was too late.
No, I didn't.
Like you started quoting Princess Bride. And you know, on my plane ride home, Princess Bride was on the stuff. So I was watching Princess Bride laughing my face off when they did the get off the grass.
Or the Princess Diaries. That's what
Princess Diaries. That's what it was. Thank you for correcting me. But then, you know, I felt really bad about it when I saw the signs. And fortunately, Dan was like, listen, you guys frolicked across the grass. And I told him like, low key, frolicking was our priority. But he was like, okay, but it looked like you were trying to go around that one tour group who was blocking the entire path for you to get back to us. So it looked like we were doing what we had to do to get back to our group. Even though the universe made it inevitable that it was okay for us to frolic.
We frolicked well.
Yes, we do. We're good at frolicking.
That being said, we frolicked in many locations as well, which was really cool. I really had a fun time exploring Galway. When we explored Galway, it was really neat. It was really cool energy because Galway, what is currently Galway, actually encompasses what used to be Galway and Claddagh. So the Claddagh rings was like the hand and the heart and like the crown came from that village, but there was basically they were both fishing villages, and obviously Galway won whatever competition that was because Galway still exists. But it was cool to like go around and feel the different kind of energies there, and I think everyone had a really fun time experiencing that and finding story inspiration there because we were focusing on writing on this particular retreat. And though there wasn't a ton of writing that we did because we did so many other things, everyone got a lot of inspiration for writing. It was really cool because we did this on the Greece trip too, but just to see it happen again is to have everyone select a validation and then just see how intensely and incessantly those validation symbols come up for everyone, because it did for everybody. Everyone selected validation and everyone just got spammed by the universe of this validation. And it's cool because after a while, everyone gets to know what everyone else's validation is. So if they see a fox or a salamander or a bell ring or whatever, they're like, hey, like that's your thing, right? And like pointing them out to each other. And it's just so cool. So cool. So just really neat energy there. It was just really awesome. I think the Olam stone was a huge highlight for a lot of people because it really was super powerful. For whatever reason, the fairies there was like a little divot in the stone with like water in it. And they were like, touch it. And I was like, okay. So I touched the water and they're like, put it on your head and put it on your heart. And I was like, okay. And I was like, now what? And they're like, do it again. I was like, okay. So I did it twice. Nothing really happened with it, but I'm still like waiting for it because it feels like it hasn't settled in, if that makes sense yet. So I'll see what that is. But that was like a weird thing that kind of arose. And then Weston, I had an extra day because it was cheaper to have a longer stay in Ireland than it was to fly back a day sooner because airline stuff makes zero sense. And we went around and got to see some really cool stuff in Dublin too. So I got to see the oldest books in the entire city in the oldest public library to exist in Ireland. It's called Marsh's Library. Highly recommend. It was incredibly cool. It was incredibly cool. Super duper haunted. So haunted. So many ghosts in there, but it was really, really neat. We obviously saw like Trinity Library as well, and at the Trinity College and the Book of the Kells. Which is also, of course, incredibly cool. They are currently fireproofing the Trinity College long room library.
Which is smart.
It's super smart, but they're going to close it down in about, I think, less than a month, they said. And it's going to be closed down for the next 3 to 5 years. So we really just snuck in right in time to get to see it, which was just a really cool, like, serendipitous experience, of which there were many, of which there were so many different ones that we had happen on the trip. And it was really, really cool. We also went to the Oscar Wilde statue. So there's an Oscar Wilde statue, like monument memorial situation, and he's like laying on a rock. He's made of all these different colors of stone. It's not like a metal statue, it's all stone, which is really interesting. And he's staring at the house he grew up in. Like laying back on the rock, and like one half of his face looks like he's smiling. Like if you view one profile, it's like smiling, and the other half is like frowning. It's really interesting. Like the way they artistically created that. But we were like walking around that park and he was very much there, but less of like a ghost and more of like a spiritual imprint from him as a teenager, just like walking back and forth, having a panic about something. We're like having a stress about something. So that was an interesting kind of channeling I got to do as well on our last kind of day there, which was really neat. Yeah. So lots of just really cool energy. What was the big highlight for you?
On our first day there, Dan and I just roamed around the whole city for literally like 7 hours. We had a lot of steps in, but we also went to a lot of really cool like local restaurants for breakfasts and things the whole time. We would get up at like 5 a.m. and go for a long walk into town and find something that was open. And we got to in Dublin, which was our favorite city. It had such a good vibe to it, just so alive with stuff. We went to the Literary Museum of Ireland, and there was so much inspiration from writers to writers. And there was that one story that I ended up posting on Threads where we walked into this one room that was an exhibit to something, and it reminded us of this Da Vinci thing we did, where you would go in and there were pillows on the floor and you could lay down and see like all the paintings on the walls or whatever. So there were pillows on the floor, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go in and like sit on the pillows and listen to this. And as we walked in, we heard, "Get out of my house. Get out of my house." And so I was just like, fine. And then it said like one more thing, like a get out of my house situation. It was the pre-recorded voice of a poem that was being read. But it, like, as soon as I walked in, it told me to get out. So I was like, you know what? I don't know what this is. I'm gonna get out. Like, I'm learning to respect signs on this trip. I will do that. So it was hilarious though, because Dan was with me and he was just like, oh, I guess we don't belong here. But we got to, one of the things you got to do was sort of write an inspirational note to other writers and like put it on a wall with everybody else. It was really fun. It made me think of the people in our current cohort, the Forgotten Storytellers, just like people who are saying like, I don't know who I am when I sit down at my desk, but I know I am this person before I sit down. I'm this person after I get back up, but whoever is writing is not me. And it was just like, yeah, that's channeled writing. Like that's a thing. And they're all experiencing it. And yeah, so I'll be telling people in our cohort that today.
Amazing. Yeah. Really, just really cool vibe and energy about it. I will say one thing that happened again at the Olam Stone that I just find so funny. It's very similar to your like get out of my house. one of our the people on the trip with us, you know, a lot of us were like crying or having emotional reaction because there was big heavy magic. One of them was like hugging the stone so deeply. and this motorcyclist drives by on the road, and he's already having a bad day. Like, he just got cut off by this man, and he's like cussing under his breath, and he like, I'm watching him, and he turns his head, sees us standing there, and goes, "What the fuck?" Like, as loud as possible. And it was so funny. And everyone just died laughing, and it totally like changed the whole vibe of everything. It was very like the universe being like, "You're going too heavy, not now," and like pulled it back up. And then right after that, we got to go like, or was it right before? I don't remember. We went to like a chocolate factory and did like cute things like that. To, like, again, kind of switch that up, but it was so funny. And it's again that like, "Get out of my house." It's like, "What the fuck?" And like this thick Irish accent. It was fabulous. Fabulous.
It's cool there how like stuff isn't as boarded off as we have here. Like we did, some of us hiked the cliffs of Moher, and you got to be like really close to the edge. And then at one point, because the cliffs are like falling off each year, they have a trail that you have to follow that's further back. But it was just really cool to see that like you can sit responsibly. Like they trust you to be smart human beings. Not everybody was. There was a memorial to people who failed taking a selfie. So there's that. But even next to that memorial, there were families having picnics. So they're just like, that one person maybe wasn't as aware as they should have been, but we're not going to ruin it for everybody for that sake, which is interesting for me. You know, when you think about the boundaries and borders that keep you away from things in other areas, and how they're just like, nature is nature, and you kind of have to go with what nature decides. And that's sort of an at your leisure, at your risk situation. And I think a lot of us would benefit from being more in tune with nature, you know, respecting the edge of a cliff, respecting the grass, respecting the elements and the elementals that are there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also just kind of similar on that note, the amount of Irish history that we did not know, or I did not know going into it, was pretty extensive. Like when I got history from multiple different guides, and I was like, wow, like we were alive for this history and didn't learn about it while it was happening. Like a lot of that was coming up, which was very interesting as well. Just not just misconceptions, I guess, in our capacity, but things that literally we just weren't taught at all about Ireland and Irish history and all of that. And I will say a lot of people do go over there looking for their roots, because there was a lot of immigration from Ireland to the US. And that is understood, but also and kind of respected as well. But also it's a lot of like, hey, well, then this is the actual history you should probably learn about, and not just like find your name on something or something like that, which is kind of a cool balance as well, I thought.
Yeah, it was really cool to be able to feel into the energy. So many times we would feel into the energy, and then it would be confirmed in the education we were receiving. And I always love that. I love validation on stuff. I know you really appreciate that too, channeling in history as much as you do. But having that experience in a group of people that were all experiencing it together, getting to talk about it, getting to validate each other, so many cool things. And then having some people have an experience validating each other. And then like, I didn't hear certain voices that they were hearing because I wasn't as clairaudient as they were, but there were other things. So like, you could just, the amount of, like jealousy free environment to support the growth and expansion of your own ability was epic. I really appreciated that.
It really was. It was so neat. And we're doing more. So if you want to come to Italy with us and get to experience all of this in Italy, where we tap into ancient Roman energy and Renaissance energy and the medieval energy that is in Italy, and the magic in that land, which there is much of, there is so much magic and energy spirits in that space. It's really, really cool. And we're even going to go to Tuscany at one point and go channel nature stuff out there. I mean, we're doing a ton of really cool stuff. If you want to do that with us, we have a couple spots left still on our Italy trip. So check them out.
Yeah.
They're in either of our link tree, or you can just search Trova Trip Italy, Emily, KristaLyn, and it'll pop up.
Yep. Yeah, there's tons of folklore in Italy that we'll be able to explore. It's going to be amazing.
That's amazing. I'm so excited. I obviously love it there. So I'm really thrilled to get to go back.
My family has roots there, back like Sicily, but still, I don't look like it, but I have a lot of Italian in me.
Yep. It's going to be really cool. I'm so excited to do all of that with you all, channel in so much energy. It's going to be so neat. Anyway,
it's going to be great.
But yeah, this has been a great catch up. So glad to be back. There's a lot of energy going on. Don't forget to ground and clear and help your energy the best that you can. And we hope that you take all of this and that you
go make some magic.
Make some magic.
Oh, did it
Oh,
work?
that was like a
Okay.
concise one. I
Yeah.
have no idea if it worked or not, but it felt very
Yeah.
concise.
We'll see how it goes. Let us know, you guys.
Bye.